صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين حبيب الله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم وبسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون صدق الله العلي العظيم إجماع صلوات اللهم Assalamu alaikum, brothers, sisters, and respected scholars. I would like to begin by first spending my peace and blessings on the family of the Holy Prophet and his progeny, and to congratulate all of you here and the Imam of our time on the blessed birth of these three amazing figures, these three nur that are in our history, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. For surely these are three characters in which in the Quran, when we read لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, we know that it applies to Rasulullah, but it also applies to these figures as well. And what do we mean by uswatun hasana? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, indeed in the messenger of Allah, you have an excellent example. So we want to make sure that during these nights where we see the wiladah of figures, such respected figures such as these, we want to take an understanding, a deeper dive, or a modern look into their lives, to be able to use it and to be able to understand how we can use these characters and apply them into our everyday lives. And one of the important discussions in which we can see their effects and how we want to use them is in one of the most fundamental aspects in our fiqh. And this fundamental aspect is Amr bil Maroof and Nahy anil Munkar. And tonight I want to look into this specific discussion of Amr bil Maroof and Nahy anil Munkar. For this is a discussion that sometimes it leads people away from Islam. It is wrongly understood and sometimes wrongly applied. For sometimes you think you're doing your Amr bil Maroof, you're calling people to good, or you are forbidding people from evil. But what you're actually doing is making them away from religion, or you make them move away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we want to look at how we can positively impact other people through Amr bil Maroof, through enjoining good and forbidding evil, and how not to do it negatively. And first of all, we want to begin by understanding that Islam in itself is a religion that has a very societal aspect, a social aspect around it. That Islam is a religion of community. How Islam wants us to be in our society and be helpful to our society, to enjoin good upon others, to forbid others from doing evil. And this is one of the main concepts and the main philosophies behind why we have Salat al-Jama'ah. When we pray together towards one way, towards the Qibla, there is a sense of community. And Amr bil Maroof is very important in this aspect. It is an obligation upon us to put this Amr bil Maroof into effect. And we can see the importance of this from Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, all of the righteous actions, including jihad in the way of Allah, in relation to an act of Amr bil Maroof and Nahy anil Munkar, can be compared to water in one's mouth and water that is in the deep oceans. So through this one hadith, we can clearly understand the impact of Amr bil Maroof and why it is so important into our life. So inshallah, I want to dissect this topic more thoroughly. And we need to look at it through 5 different dimensions. Inshallah, we'll go through them tonight. On the first dimension, we want to understand what are our manners when we call others to Islam, to do good and enjoy evil. On the second dimension, how do we respond to those who say, why don't you mind your own business? On the third dimension, we want to look at the conditions of doing Amr bil Maroof and Nahy anil Munkar. If we don't follow these conditions, we will cause ourselves to be astray and others as well. And on the fourth dimension, how can we implement Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar. And on the final dimension, we want to look at the relation to our Imams and Karbala. So on the first hand, when we discuss our manners in which we do Amr bil Ma'ruf, we need to look at the Quran to see what the Quran says about this. And the Quran says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wa maw'idati hasanah. وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين. So what does this verse say? Invite all to the way of your Lord with wisdom. You see, he puts two specific conditions here. Invite people to your Lord through wisdom, hikmah, and invite them through kind advice. And only debate them in the best manner. So we want to debate only in the nicest manner, in the best manners, which make them interested in Islam and interested in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like I said before, when we do not do Amr bil Ma'ruf in the correct way, if we do not use hikmah and we don't use our kind advice, this causes others to be led away from Islam. And we've seen this many times when people try to tell others not to do something through anger. Many of you might have heard this. For example, you did this, wallahi, you're going to Jahannam. We might have heard this before from someone, right? Someone who, for example, prays 5 times a day. He gives his khums, he gives his zakat. But how does he call others to Islam? When someone does something wrong, he makes an error, wallahi, you're going to Jahannam. Li'awdhu billah. We don't want to try to do Nahi Anil Munkar through this specific way. Because this leads others to be turned away from Islam. These actions cause people to dislike Islam, dislike Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and dislike the Ahlul Bayt. But we want to be very, very kind. And when we do it in a very respectful and kind manner, we should make sure not to be harsh or not to judge others. We should remember that we're all human beings, and many of us tend to make mistakes. We are not ma'asum. So when someone makes a mistake, our niyyah, our heart should be pure in the way we do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar. When we enjoin, when you tell others to do good and we stop them from doing evil, we should have a pure heart that we want to help them, not in a way to embarrass them, not to show them in a bad light. Maybe set someone aside and you say this Amr bil Ma'ruf. You call to them. And this story we can see from Imam Hussain alayhi salam, as well as Imam Hassan. And this is a very, very famous story. How does Imam Hussain call people to good? We see that there's a story when they're at a young age, they see an old man doing wudu. So he starts doing wudu and he's doing it in an incorrect manner. When they see that he's doing it in an incorrect manner, they don't want to embarrass him. They don't want him to see that these children know more than him about what he's doing. So here's what they do. They come to the old man and they say, can you please tell us, between us two, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain alayhi salam, which of our wudu is better? So they both start doing wudu, and they do it in the most perfect manner. And upon seeing this, the old man, he realizes his mistake. He realized that he has been doing wudu incorrect the whole time. He says, you both are correct, and it is I who was wrong. So just with this simple action, they're able to call him to enjoin good, to help him fix his wudu through not shaming him or not embarrassing him or not telling him your wudu is incorrect, your prayers aren't going to be accepted. But in a way that the old man would be able to understand this topic. So this is the first dimension of trying to be doing our Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar. When we call people, we want to have the best manner. We want to have a very respectful manner. And the Imams themselves, when they call people, we don't have any stories about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the Imams who called in a harsh manner, who called with anger. But rather, it's in a very beautiful way that they call people. And that was just one story and one anecdote of their life. But we can see many of these in the lives of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. On the second dimension, how do we respond to those who tell us to mind our own business? For it's a correct point. When you try to tell someone, okay, let's go pray salah, or let's do this, or don't do that, someone might come up to us and they might say, why are you being so nosy in our affairs? Why do you care so much about it? Mind your own business, go on your own day, and I will go on mine. We need to be watchful that it doesn't come to this, first of all, because when we call people in a kind manner, it doesn't lead others to say something like this. But if they do, we need to understand how we need to respond to something like this. And then important aspect we need to understand is how we return to how Islam is a religion that emphasizes on society, on the community. When Islam views all of mankind or a community like a boat, if one person starts sinking the boat or they put in holes, of course everyone else's ship is gonna drown. It's going to sink. So we want to make sure that our society in itself doesn't go astray. And this is by simple things, to only where you can do it. You don't need to look at other people to how they're doing Amr Maroof. But on a personal aspect, you want to make sure that when you call people, you call it in a correct way. So you can do to the best of your own abilities. And if we act in such a way that we don't call people and we mind our own business, it comes to a time where society is ruled by wicked acts, by those around us do wrong actions, and no one says anything about it. If things are completely against Islam and we don't decide to do anything about it to our potential, to what we can do, then we haven't done enough. Because we didn't do Amr Maroof, the righteous doers are less. It's led someone to go astray. It leads our brothers to go astray. It leads a friend to go astray. So to the best of your own capabilities, you want to try to help them enjoy good and forbid evil in a correct manner, in a kind and respectful manner. And Imam Rida alayhi salam says it perfectly. He says, you must practice Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, because if you do not, you will be ruled upon by evil people. And if the righteous ones among you will supplicate, their supplications shall not be granted. So in this aspect, we can understand that if we don't do enough, society itself, those around us, it will cause ourselves to be corrupted. Those that are around us, when they're corrupted, it causes ourselves to go astray as well. So this is a very personal aspect to this as well. And Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, indeed, the Almighty has cursed those who have come before you for neglecting Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. Thus, there is a curse upon the ignorant sinners. Of course, we know that the ignorant sinners are cursed upon. But what? He also says, and the intelligent people who neglected Nahy anil Munkar. Those who knew about it, those who had the knowledge and the wisdom, but they chose not to do Nahy anil Munkar. And there is a curse upon that. So that is our second aspect and our second dimension that we want to look at, Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. And now we say, okay, so now I wish to do Amr bil Ma'ruf. Let's say you want to do it now. What are the conditions for me to do Amr bil Ma'ruf? And this is the third dimension. And the conditions are four. The four main conditions that our scholars have said about Amr bil Ma'ruf is, one, that you have the knowledge of good and evil, and that you're already implementing it in your own life. For the Quran says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. O you who believe, why do you say something that you do not do? If you're saying something that you're not trying to implement in your own life, then you're being very hypocritical at its core. You're not trying to do good. For when you don't know enough, or you don't have enough knowledge in this certain subject, and you're doing wrong, this leads other people to go astray. And the second condition of enjoining good and forbidding evil is that you know it proves beneficial. So if you see someone in the street, for example, what are the odds of this being beneficial to them? If these odds are close to none, we don't want to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. For then we waste our own time and we waste this person's time. And maybe he might curse upon us after, on his way leaving. He might say something bad to us. So we want to make sure that this is beneficial. So for example, if it's your friend, if it's your brother, it's your sister, this is where you might find it beneficial to implement this. A third condition is, if it doesn't lead to your loss of wealth, the loss of your health, or loss of your honor. if this Amr bil Ma'ruf is going to cause you to get hurt, if this is going to cause you to lose money, a large sum of money, if this causes you to get embarrassed in front of many people, don't do Amr bil Ma'ruf. It's not obligatory on this specific condition. We want to make sure that it doesn't cause us to lose our health, to lose our wealth, to lose honor in front of people. And the last condition is, if a person has repented and they are seeking change, if this person has realized, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've done wrong, I want to change, and he's on his path to changing, don't do Amr bil Ma'ruf on this man. For if this person has done wrong, let's say he drunk before, he drank alcohol, but now he knows, Ya Allah, I've done wrong, I want to change myself. And you to come here to him, in front of him, and say, Ya akhi, why'd you drink? This is pointless. It causes someone to be angered. It's bringing this kind of topic towards someone who's already repented and is already towards the right path. It is incorrect for us to do Amr bil Ma'ruf on this time. So our 4 conditions are knowledge of good and evil, proving beneficial, not causing the loss of your wealth, your health, or your honor. And the 4th condition, of course, if this person has requested or this person has repented, we should not do Amr bil Ma'ruf. And on the second last dimension, we want to look at how we want to do Amr bil Ma'ruf. Because there's not one specific way to do it. And we can see through the Imam's lives that they have implemented it through different ways. On the first level of Amr bil Ma'ruf, show that you're displeased with your heart. With your heart, you want to show a Muslim brother, show a friend, show a relative that you do not like what they are doing. When they do wrong, you might frown. You might be disappointed. You might leave the premise in which something wrong is being done. If your friends, for example, let's say they decide to drink or they decide to do something haram, you don't need to stay in that premise. You can, with your heart, show you're displeased with this action. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, he reprimanded some of his followers for neglecting Nahi Anil Munkar. He told them why these people did not do Nahi Anil Munkar. They neglected this. When Imam Sadiq calls upon him, they say, we tried to stop them, we tried to restrain them, but they did not listen to us. The Imam says in response to this, he says, the Messenger of Allah has said, avoid their company and do not participate in their assemblies. If you know that someone is doing wrong and that they will not change, it's best for you to show you're unhappy with them and leave these people. To leave the premise, not to stay where something haram is being done. So this is the first level in which we want to try to call others to good. And on a second higher level, we want to use our words. For the Quran says, فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Speak to him gently. The Quran does say gently. So perhaps he may be mindful of me and he might be fearful of my punishment. So when we speak in a very gentle tone, we speak in a kind manner, we can cause others to change, for them to understand that what they're doing is wrong and to go towards good. And this is the second level in which we want to do Amr bil Ma'ruf. And on the highest level in which we don't want to go to from the beginning, but if we're forced to it, is when we have to use our hands. If we have to get physical. If you see someone getting hurt, you want to stop this wrong action from happening. So this is where we want to use our hands on the final level. And we can see this final level being shown in where? In Karbala. So this goes to our final aspect, our final dimension that I want to discuss tonight. And this dimension is of that of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. It is of that of Imam Zayn Al-Abiddin alayhi salam. It is the way that we can see in joining good and forbidding evil in Abul Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. When the Imam is going to Karbala, he says, O people, don't you see that truth is being neglected? Truth is not being followed, and no one is stopped from falsehood. Instead, falsehood is being made customary. Don't you see that good deeds have been neglected, and the poison of wrongdoings is assimilated into the human blood. In such circumstances, an honest person should prefer death over such a life. It's very straightforward in how he calls people. And we see from Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, before he leaves from Mecca to go to Karbala, he gives this short testament. He writes this to his brother, half-brother Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, and he gives his reason. He says, I am leaving Medina not to create sedition, not to create corruption, not to cause problems. I am leaving with the sole objective of guiding the ummah of my grandfather, the Holy Prophet. I shall enjoin the good, I shall do amr bil ma'roof, and forbid the wrong, nahy anil munkar. I follow the footsteps of my grandfather and my father Ali ibn Abi Talib. If anyone wants to respond to my righteous call, it is better in the eyes of God. On the other hand, if anyone has any objection, I shall be patient and seek God's arbitration between me and the people. For God is the best judge. And this summarizes our discussion tonight. Our discussion on Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. How does he say it? He says he wants to call people. He's going to Karbala for the sake of enjoining good and forbidding evil. If they do not listen, he tries to do it in a kind manner, but if they do not listen, if they have any objection, he shall be patient and seek Allah's arbitration. So, we should always, to end off our discussion, our final point here is that we should always try to do Amr al-Ma'ruf in the way that the Uswatul Hasana has done. Those that are the best examples have done. And we should do it in a very respectful and kind manner. We should lead by our example. And we should work together as a community in all aspects to do what is right and prevent what is wrong. Inshallah, may Allah guide us among those who strive to enjoin good and forbid evil. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ijman salawat.